I finally did it. I've finally seen a musical again. Praise the Lord. I have missed theatre so much. It's not fair. Let's talk about Sleepless. But if you're new to this channel, hi, I'm Daniel. I talk about theatre. If you want to hear someone talk about theatre, why not listen to me? I make great musical theatre videos every single week. So why not hit subscribe and maybe like this video if you enjoy it. But for now, let's talk about Sleepless. The first indoor musical to reopen after lockdown, Sleepless, based on the classic film Sleepless in Seattle, is about Sam, who's grieving his dead wife and trying to raise his son, Jonah. But when Jonah calls in a radio show, Sam becomes a popular bachelor with letters being written to him left, right and centre. One stands out to Jonah, which is written by Annie. Will she be the one for Sam? Now, I am going to criticise this show as if I had seen it before lockdown, just because I don't know what restrictions they had, so I don't know where to give it points and give it negatives, so I'm just going to review it as a show. As a normal show, as if I wasn't completely social distanced and fearing for my life. But I will give it a bonus point, just for having the balls. I mean, I have so much respect for everyone backstage, all the actors on stage, the people doing the tests, and the producers just to throw money at this, knowing that they probably won't get any of it back or make anything, and just to take this risk to bring back theatre and to give people some jobs. It's so admirable. It was so brilliant to be back in that room. So if you're watching this, any of the Sleepless cast, team, producers, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. Now I'm about to criticise your show a little bit. I'm very sorry, but thank you. Now, if I had seen Sleepless before a global pandemic, I probably wouldn't be singing its praises much. But there are still praises to give it. But let's start with the negatives. Overall, it's fine. But I think Sleepless's weakness, most of all, is its music. When I first went in, and then during the first 10 minutes, I kind of heard the score, and it has this really jazzy undertone with loads of saxophone and trumpet. It's very... I don't want to use the word jazzy because I just used the word jazz. Edit Daniel, could you please go onto thesaurus.com, find a different word for jazzy, and put it in my mouth, please? Thank you. Put it in my mouth, please. Wow. Yeah, it has this very
snazzy
undertone to it, and it's very cool. Yeah, I love jazz musicals, Hadestown, Bandstand. There's not many of them, but they're well, great. But as I kind of went through the show, the music didn't really stand out to me. All the songs kind of blended together, especially the ones sung by Annie. She gets a lot of reprises. A lot of the characters get some reprises, and when there's so many reprises, it just feels like the same song over and over again. Maybe if I listened to the soundtrack before, if there is one, a cast recording beforehand, maybe this wouldn't have happened. Maybe the songs would have defined themselves a little bit more. But when I'm going in completely blind, that's what I kind of felt. The story, I'm pretty sure, is just the film on stage. I looked at the Wikipedia for the film, and I'm pretty sure the only big difference is that the role of Jessica in the film, who is Jonah's friend, is now replaced with Rob, who is Sam's friend and Jonah's babysitter. So, not really a difference. Not really. Let's be real. And I am very critical of musical film adaptations where they literally just put the film on stage. See my thoughts on Mean Girls, the musical. But just taking what they gave me on stage, I thought it was okay. It's very typical romantic comedy, which I'm not a massive fan of as a genre. It's very tropey, the worst offender for worst trope is the misunderstanding. And then it starts referring to romantic comedies within the romantic comedy, and then using those romantic comedy tropes and going, hey, look, this is like that romantic comedy. And when you haven't watched these romantic comedies, for an outsider, it's completely inaccessible. But I will say the script is quite witty. There's a lot of really funny lines in there. I think Annie Reid gets a lot of really good dialogue. And it did make me chuckle here and there, so, positive within the negative. My final kind of gripe, I'll call it, because it's not really too negative, it's a bit more nitpicky, is with the staging. If you have seen the Troubadour Wembley Theatre, It is massive. And this stage like kind of comes to a point and goes out and all around, and it's very expansive, but I felt like a lot of the time most of the action was done in the center. It felt very static. Now I think that's probably because of, social distance restrictions, and I felt like there was a lot of opportunities to do some dances or some more expansive choreography, but they didn't really take them. It was a little bit of a shame and a little bit nitpicky, because I know this is probably the big thing that they had to work around. Now it's a shame that these are my three criticisms of Sleepless, like two of the biggest things you need for a musical, and then like one kind of nitpicky thing that really did end up getting on my nerves a little bit. Because the rest of the show is really good. There's so much good within the show. Now, on the Dan Talks Theatre Variety channel, we love set design. And oh my god, is this set good? I could sing this set's praises all day. So, before the show, I'll show a picture on screen right now while I'm talking. There's kind of like this curtain that comes down. It's kind of like this triangular shutter. Like, it has this projection of like a Seattle skyline. It looks really cool. That's kind of like the safety curtain, and it's used in the show and before the show. The kind of overall stage kind of points at the front, and then there's like a couple of like dining seats down the front, but then it kind of arches around, and there's this like river going round the stage, which I wish they kind of used a little bit more for the show, that it wasn't just kind of there for effect. I wish they kind of like skimmed stones in it or something. That would be quite cute. These two kind of docks that poke out the side and go up and round to insinuate that they're living on a houseboat. It's very cool. It's very effective. It's this amazing kind of set design that really feels like they took the time to design it and think about the different stylizations of what this houseboat would look like, and it really transforms the stage area. It looks really cool. And then I need to talk about these projections, as I kind of mentioned, with the shutters coming down, they're projecting the skyline, but when they come up, they keep these kind of two lines at the top. They use to project like text and stuff, and it brings you into different areas, and all of this is like sketched out, and all the backgrounds are sketched out to refer back to Sam's job as an architect. I will say I wish when they popped up they were drawn, because they have this like fade effect. I think, he's an architect, he's drawing all of this. It would be very clever to have them actually be drawn and go fast-paced drawing, but that is also very nitpicky. It's just a personal preference. But God, does it look good with the skyline and the different text and like different places with different locations and the massive skylines and the colours and the purples and the blues and it felt so magical. I love set design. I love set design so much. And the acting in the show was just superb. I mean, there are so many performances to write home about. Jonah, who I think I saw Theo Collins. I'm not 100% sure. I think I saw Theo Collins. But he was a standout. He's such a young performer, but he gets all the best moments and he delivers them perfectly. He has so much energy. I mean, everyone's been singing these little Jonah's praises, and I am no exception. Well done, sir. I could never do what you do. Now, this show did have two leads that could be considered a stunt cast, seeing as the male lead, Jay McGuinness, was in the band The Wanted, and Kimberly Walsh was in the band Girls Aloud. But both of them had very good performances. Jay McGuinness was very good. He's kind of found his footing in musicals, going straight from Big to this, which both had very similar producers. But I think the biggest surprise was Kimberly Walsh, because I wasn't expecting much from her, and this role is quite challenging. She gets a lot of dialogue, a lot of like fast-paced lines, a lot of singing, and there's a lot to think about in her role, but she does it so well. And while I wasn't really a fan of the music as a whole, I do think the orchestrations and the orchestra were brilliant. Now, that's my thoughts on the show, but I think I have to also talk about, the elephant in the room. How safe did I feel? Well, surprisingly, I felt really safe. It was very clear that these producers had thought of everything. As soon as I got to the gates, I was met by a person wearing a mask, gave me a temperature check, made me sign up for an NHS track and trace thing. There was this outside space which is all social distance and everything, but as soon as I stepped through the doors of the actual theatre, I felt even more safe. There weren't many people surrounding the area, and it was just this massive foyer space. There was a nice little thing where you could take your photo with the Sleepless background, which your boy did. There was enough space to keep a strong social distance. And in the actual theatre, which is absolutely massive, all the seats were marked properly, so you knew exactly which seats were going to be free and which ones you weren't. But as soon as I walked into those theatre gates, I felt so safe. So again, massive props to all the producers and everyone working front of stage and just making sure this flowed and worked properly. It was very clearly a tried and true method. But overall, what are my thoughts on Sleepless? Well, I definitely think there's things to admire here, as well as some criticisms. And I think the criticisms are, quite big. They're the two biggest things in a musical. But then I admire these producers so much for taking a risk, and I didn't hate it. I was definitely enjoying myself, and just being in a theatre again felt so great, I think I'll give it 3 stars. I think that's fair. 3 stars. I think I'll give it the benefit of the doubt that it wasn't completely for me as a show. And just, I can't give it anything less than 3 stars from just how much effort went into making sure that this musical can even go on. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please consider hitting like and maybe subscribing. It really helps out the channel. The links to my Twitter, Instagram and Patreon are all in the description, or you can check out some of my other videos on screen right now. But that's it for me today. I'll hopefully see you next time. Bye!